What is up, y'all? We are here to talk about the new episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It is season 4, episode 4 as well. I am definitely not a fan of Miss Monica. I'm just not. But we'll get into it. So we start out the episode. We are kind of I guess, getting kind of like a recap of what happened the night before, because there was just a lot of drama when they went to dinner, and then when they came back on the van, so there was just a ton of things. So first we get the day, on the second day of the trip, when you go in your homegirl's room, you guys kind of just talk to each other about the tea. So we get the Whitney and the Lisa. We haven't really gotten much Whitney and Lisa this season, so I'm wondering what really is their dynamic, because they were giving best pals last season. This season they're getting along, but it doesn't give they're interacting that much for me. But that's just a side note. Whitney is reiterating what she said the night before, where she clocked Meredith's tea, and she's just Meredith, and she was a really good word that I hadn't thought of. She's Meredith manipulates situations, and that makes sense. She gets into these binds where she is in conflicts with the ladies, and I think we all can relate to seeing Meredith having really, really, really big issues with the ladies and being very, 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 very vocal and emotional about them. But as soon as there's some time to give some context to why she has these big emotions and big issues all the time, and B, be held accountable for what Meredith does, she also comes up with some extraneous issues that she has going on, and they're bigger than life, even bigger than the original issue. So I will, like I said, I didn't really pick up on that until Whitney shed light on the last episode. So I can see that that's a possibility, that Meredith does do those things to kind of manipulate these situations and kind of get the heat off of her. So Whitney's saying that. I liked seeing, because for whatever reason, I guess, I don't know if there's some off-camera stuff that happens, but obviously Lisa and Meredith had that conversation where they decided they were going to move forward. And it seems like they're both making very conscious efforts to do so. It didn't seem like they were oh, we're going to have each other's back, when they talked on camera, which is why I'm saying maybe they talked off camera and they're really working on it. Because even when they're having this conversation, Lisa's listening, and obviously her and Whitney are cool, and I'm sure she doesn't disagree. She even says it. She's just I can definitely understand where you're coming from, and I can see that is a pattern, but also me and Meredith are, we're trying to be in a better place, so I don't want to be in the middle of it. So I like the stance. I said that last episode. I feel like that's kind of the stance that Lisa is taking this season, where she's not really trying to be in the mix. She's just trying to do Lisa. But she does still have her opinion about things. So, I liked how that exchange went. The word Lisa used was weaponized. It's she does notice that Meredith weaponizes things. So two good words I feel like that came from there. Whitney saying, manipulates the situation, and Lisa saying weaponizes. I think those are good words too. Whitney does bring up the fact that she likes, I guess she peeps game, that they are working on their relationship, and she brings up, I did like seeing you go out with Meredith yesterday when Meredith was upset, you went out to the parking lot with her, and Lisa's yeah, but that was great, but what bothered me, she reiterates, was the rumor thing. The first thing that Meredith went to was rumors about Angie K when she was upset about Angie K, and she's just oh, not this again. So it's nice to hear okay, that is an issue that Lisa has, because she brought it up in her confessional last episode, only in her confessional, and obviously we know confessionals are shot after the season. So I don't know, sometimes they can manipulate what they're saying in the confessionals for the sake of a storyline, but now we're seeing that she actually said it in person on the trip in dialogue with Whitney, so that's really how she felt at the time. I don't know if that mattered to anybody else, but it mattered to me. It substantiated some things. Then we have, awkwardly enough, Monica meeting with Meredith to talk about the night. I guess Meredith wanted to come say thank you, because she cried on Monica's shoulder in the bus yesterday, and she's you're the only one that really was checking on me or whatever. So she wants to check in with Meredith, and with Monica, excuse me. Meredith wants to check in with Monica. And Monica immediately is expressing that she had an issue with the Angie K thing, which I think is fine, because just because she's Angie K's friend doesn't mean she needs to follow up behind her. However, I think there's a fine line between having an opinion and having a conversation with Meredith about it and like bashing Angie K, especially because the situation happened between Angie K and Meredith. So it's weird that you're basically picking a side that's adverse to your friend while you're talking to the opponent. Like, that's just weird. So, but Monica's a weird girl. I'm just being very nice about it right now, but it's gonna get worse. But she's basically bashing Angie K to Meredith, and I just feel like that's really weird. I don't even think that Meredith was necessarily going in like that. Meredith's not really a going in type of girl. She definitely has strong feelings, as we've talked about, but she doesn't really read, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I felt like Monica was reading Angie K, and that was just really weird coming from a friend. And she keeps reiterating like, well, as Angie's friend, and then she proceeds to read her. So I'm just not feeling Monica, and again, as I said, it's gonna get worse. The other thing, like, I feel like Monica just kind of talks to talk. Let's talk about it, because I mean, she just contradicts the hell out of herself, like, in multiple ways. But also, even in this moment, like I said, she always says like, as Angie's friend, and she's like, I just kind of feel like I'm in the middle because you invited me on this trip and Angie's being really like rude to you. And it's like, well, you're putting yourself in the middle because you don't even know Meredith. Like, yes, Meredith planned the trip, but honestly, Meredith's not doing much to facilitate the trip. Like, no shade to Meredith, super cute trip. I like Meredith, but she's not really giving like, oh, I'm the host, like da 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 da. So it's just like, you don't really have to interact with Meredith at all. So there's no middle to be in. Like, Angie's your friend. If you felt some type of way about what Angie was doing, then you have a conversation with Angie. I don't know why you're having that conversation with Meredith, because you don't even know her. It's also weird because and I hate this in general, like, she's having a conversation with Meredith and she's like, I guess she's trying to soften it up, or this is her way of softening up, and she's just like, yeah, the way that Angie's acting is really weird. Like, I don't know Angie to act like this, so this is really out of character for her. So why is that not a conversation that you would have with Angie as a friend, right? As you keep saying, why would you not talk to Angie and say, hey girl, like, you acting a little weird, like, why are you acting like that? Like, why? The group is now going to do trust exercises. I don't really have much on that. I mean, it looked cute or whatever, but they're in the field, and Mary is not giving that. When she initially, like, when Meredith got out of the van and she let Meredith know, like, this is not the group that I want to move forward with and do trust, because, you do trust exercises to build, trust in the group or whatever. And she's like, this is not the group that I want to move forward with like that at this time. I didn't necessarily have an issue with that. I do feel like there's a fine line for me. I do feel like Mary's being very adversarial. I feel like Mary has always been very adversarial. Like, she's just against everything and very just kind of But I also like to find a very fine thin line between adversarial and negative. So I guess I would say that Mary kind of teetered over from adversarial to negative for me this episode. Again, initially I didn't have a problem with it, but as the episode went on, it got bad for me. But I do feel like in this moment, to stay in that moment, I do feel like she articulated it well and was just like, hey, I'm not really trying to move forward with this group. I'll just stay in the van. So that I didn't necessarily have a problem with. However, though, when they get back on the van after they do the trust thing, I like that Meredith was able to, stand up and not, because like I said before, like, I feel like her and Mary were just kind of up under each other that previous season, the season before last, and now it seems like, they're friends, but they're still gonna hold each other accountable, and I like that. I'm fine with that. And I do like how Mary was just like, I do wish that you would have participated. I mean, Meredith was like, I do wish you would have participated to Mary. But Mary automatically got very defensive, and just her attitude is just so kind of stank, unfortunately. Because I like Mary, but her attitude was very stank. And, she was very defensive. She's like, well, did I not tell you? And I get her point, because I do feel like I said, she articulated it well. But just because you said that doesn't mean that Meredith shouldn't feel like you should have participated. Like, that aside, I still feel like you should have participated, is what Meredith is trying to say. So I'm team Meredith on that. And, Lisa tries to jump in, because I think, yes, it didn't have anything to do with Lisa, but I do feel like it was a group conversation because it's a group activity. And Mary is saying she doesn't want to be involved with the group. So I don't really have a problem with somebody from the group speaking. Also, a second point is, I feel like Meredith, like I said, she's not a reader. And I don't feel like she came in hot to that conversation, whereas Mary was responding hot. And I don't think that Meredith is necessarily confrontational. Like, she doesn't have it. So I think that Lisa stepped in to give a different perspective or like a different voice to it. And Mary was automatically very dismissive and rude to Lisa. Whatever. I can see both sides of it. Like, no, she wasn't talking to her, but at the end of the day, this is, going to turn into a group conversation. So I do like that Whitney was able to weigh in, and she did honestly hit the nail on the head with that one. Like, well, why would you even come on a girls' trip if you don't want to participate with the group? Because I think that's a fair question at the end of the day. So, I get that Mary doesn't want to participate. I understand the reason. I think that she articulated it well to Meredith. However, the way that she does things is very stank. So I think that I would challenge it as well and be like, well, why are you even here? Because you're honestly giving negative at the end of the day. It's very negative. They're like sitting to do nothing, I guess. I don't know what the hell they're doing. And Whitney, as she alluded to earlier in the episode, she's like, if we are bored, like, I'm going to take over. And I like that she took over in this moment, because at the end of the day, like, the trip is kind of hers. I said this last episode. Like, with the whole dinner thing, she really kind of led that off. So, like, Meredith's doing a good job. But, like, Whitney's little compliments of plans are just making it even better. So I'm enjoying it. And I like I love drag. I love Drag Race, and I love Trixie. She's one of my favorite queens, ironically. So anything involving Trixie, I think is fun. I think the event for them to, like, get into drag makeup is fun. I think what Whitney has said, like, we're going to miss an opportunity here. Like, yeah, like, why be at the Trixie Motel and not utilize the Trixie? At least for TV purposes. You forget y'all, But, I would have to agree with that. So I don't have a problem with her taking over. At the end of the day, I do admit that it's messy. But like I said last episode, Whitney's admitting that she's messy, and that's kind of the role she's playing. So I'm not mad at it. I mean, I do understand, though, Meredith being upset, but in her confessional, she's just kind of like, well, maybe I had something else planned. And I'm just like, well, why even say that? Because if you did have something else planned, I would imagine that you would have said, well, no, I have something else planned. Or the ladies would have already known that you had something else planned. So I don't believe that Meredith had anything else planned. So that doesn't really hold any weight for me. I will say this, like, this is definitely a Lisa stan page. Like, I love me some Lisa Barlow, but she was definitely very annoying when it came to, like, crying over the makeup thing. This is what I'll say. I understand where it was coming from for her, because I do feel like Lisa, this is why I feel like Lisa got emotional. I feel like she was overreacting about it, and she knew that she was overreacting about it, and she had 3 people that she had to explain it to. Like, it had been escalated. So at this point, she's talking to 2 producers, and she's talking to Meredith, the host of the trip, who she's just getting back friends with, and essentially she's holding up production, and she's holding up the event. That's the way that I looked at it. It looked like a hold up. And so when you're already overreacting, and now you're having to explain why you're overreacting. You already know you're overreacting, but it's just like, this is just how I feel. Like, I feel like that's why she kept saying, like, it's just my face. Like, this is how I feel. She felt very strongly about it. So I think that's what made her emotional. It was overwhelming for her that it was just so much going on. So I can understand that from her perspective, but it was also annoying. However, I think that Lisa knows that her personality can be a little overbearing for other people, and she can come off as annoying. And I think that that's the appeal about Lisa. Like, I feel like Lisa, that's part of her character. Like, some of us, like, annoying, obviously it has such a negative connotation, but like, some people are just a little bit irritating. Like, we all can be a little bit irritating, a little bit extra. And I feel like maybe extra is a better word. At least if you're watching this, I love you. You know I love you. I've been in your DMs. You're my girl. But like, yeah, like some of us can be a little bit extra. And I think that that's something that the audience has learned about Lisa. And people that really love Lisa, what we love is the extraness and kind of how irritating she can be. And I think she started to own that. So that's why I think, like, it's okay to, it's okay to say it regardless. But I think that she knows that and she owns that. So it's just part of the package, and that's just her personality. It is what it is. And I feel like she spoke a little bit more to that later, and we're going to get to it. Regarding her not participating, though, I would have to agree, like, okay, with her argument, like, yes, she did take one for the team when she did the swimsuit thing. Like, that was a big deal for her. Even though she complained about it, she did it. And Meredith, she spoke to that too. I don't think that Meredith would have given her that if she didn't agree. Like, Meredith doesn't owe her anything. Like I said, they're not on great terms. So I do like that Meredith was able to say, like, yeah, she has been a team player. Like, I get it. And it's not Meredith's event anyway, so I don't think Meredith cares. It's Whitney's event. But yeah, I can understand, because I would have to say, like, and I'm not saying this just because I love Lisa, and I don't really owe y'all that explanation, but I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily like themed things either, to be honest with you. Like, I'm somebody that, I think that's why I relate with Lisa. Like, I'm somebody that I typically will complain about everything at the end of the day. Like, for the most part, I'll do things just to be a team player and go with it, but that doesn't mean that I want to. And I am going to be vocal about saying that I don't want to do things. I have that conversation with my friends all the time. Like, say they're planning a group trip and they ask for my input on it. I'm going to say, you know, to be honest, that's not something that I necessarily want to do, but I'm going to do it because you want me to do it. You know what I'm saying? So there's obviously levels to it. And Lisa, you know, like she got overwhelmed and she did a lot at the end of the day, but she wasn't doing it with Whitney. So I think that, you know, that was a little bit better. She was doing it, you know, she was complaining, but she was still going to do it. She just needed like an adjustment, right? I didn't necessarily understand the adjustment at first as it was depicted, because she kind of made it seem like, okay, well, the challenge is I do my own drag makeup, but I'm going to have my glam help me out. But her glam ended up doing it anyway, which I should have known. But yeah, you know, I get it. I don't like doing theme stuff either. And, you know, if you feel that strongly about not, you know, not letting people just touch your face and play with your makeup and you looking crazy on camera, I understand that. Am I going to kick and scream and cry about it? Absolutely not. I think that that's annoying. But I think that that's Lisa. And I think Lisa knows that. So whatever. But I did think it was interesting to see that half of the group did the challenge and half didn't, right? Honestly, if we were to have been asked that question on the Ouija board, I think that they would have come out exactly like that, because it sounds about right, to be honest. And I think the ones that did participate, they looked great. Like, I think it's a fun challenge. Again, take in mind, I think this is fun. I love Trixie. I love drag. I think it's a fun thing, but I'm not offended by the fact that other people don't want to do it. At the end of the day, I don't think that it's a big deal. And I think that they still participated in some capacity. Like Mary, even though she's annoying and being negative, she put on those high shoes because she felt like that was in theme, right? And she did the makeup. Lisa, she had her, you know, person do her makeup. And Meredith did her part as well. So, I mean, I think they did what they were going to do. And I didn't disagree with Meredith's statement that, you know, she's like, everybody has their own interpretation of what the look is going to be like. It's not that big of a deal. That's how I feel. I feel like they, you know, they could have just not done it at all. And I feel like they at least did something. For me, it just wasn't a big deal. And Whitney didn't make it a big deal, but I am going to say, like, if she were to make it a big deal, she has no right, because it's not her trip. And she threw this event in there. They're not even supposed to be doing this. So honestly, across the board, for me, I just feel like it shouldn't be that big of a deal. They participated in some capacity. You guys did a little bit more. You look great. It was fun. Let's move on. However, obviously there's some weird tension in the group, and you know, they go sit down for lunch after they've done the makeovers, and you know, the half that did the challenge is sitting over here, whereas the half that didn't is sitting over here almost coincidentally. And you know, they clock the awkwardness, and the group that did it is kind of being a little bit pokey, like they feel some type of way. And that's the group that kind of pokes as it is. Like, think about it, we have Heather, Monica, and Whitney over there. They love to poke the bear. And then we kind of have the I don't give a dams over here, right? The Marys, the Meredith, and the Lisa. So it's perfect, different personalities. And so that was a fun dynamic to watch. So, you know, the ones that really don't give a damn ended up leaving the room to kind of get ready to go do the next activity. And Monica and Heather and Whitney are left back there. I do want to, say, Heather's around for a lot of the tea, but she's not saying a lot of tea this episode or this season so far. Like, let's keep that in mind. Like, Heather's kind of sitting around for the mess, but she ain't saying nothing. I see you, Heather. Monica's popping the most, and she's just like calling Lisa insecure, which I thought was so funny, because you were just crying about having to buy a Louis Vuitton bag for this specific trip, and you haven't put it down. We've seen it in every scene. So for you to call somebody else insecure is so weird to me. Like, just to pull that, it's like when people call people jealous just out the blue. Like, you just wanted to say that at the end of the day. Like, there's something else that you can say. And I just feel like Monica is just so obsessed with Lisa for absolutely no reason. And even when she's venting this heavily about Lisa, you have to notice that nobody else is feeding into it. And it's not that anybody else on this cast absolutely loves Lisa. I feel like Lisa fought the fault of being annoying and too much for the last 3 seasons. So they've already gotten into it with her about this type of stuff. Monica's brand new, and she's dragging it over essentially nothing, because she hasn't even been around Lisa like these ladies have, and they don't have anything to say. Like, Monica's talking to herself. Lisa walks back in while they're talking, literally like mid-sentence. And at that time, which I liked, and I thought this too, like, this gave credence to, like, that's just Lisa being Lisa, you know what I'm saying? Like, Angie was even saying, well, you know, Lisa doesn't like any themes, you know what I'm saying? She wasn't in the room when Lisa was explaining that, so you can tell that she knows that of her friend. Like, Lisa doesn't like any themes. Like, she doesn't like to get out of her comfort zone, you know, at the end of the day. Like, that's her. Obviously, that's not a positive thing necessarily. Like, people should be able to get out of their comfort zones, but there are certain people that don't. And, that's Lisa. I think we know that. So she's giving that different perspective to Monica as she's hollering about nothing. And as she's doing that, Lisa comes in and she's like, well, what are you guys talking about? And Monica very passive aggressively, she's not giving all the energy she was giving before when Lisa was gone, of course. And she's just like, well, I was talking about the sourpusses of the group. And, she mentions the term wet noodle. And Lisa's like, well, who's a wet noodle? And then Monica has nothing to say. So Lisa's not dumb. You know what I'm saying? I think that narrative went out the way a long time ago. She's not dumb. So she peeps tea and she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go at the end of the day. What I love is immediately when they got on the bus to go on their event, like, they're like, okay. Like, I feel like the bus had just taken off. Like, the bus driver just pressed the gas. And Lisa was like, so what was that wet noodle comment? Like, I'm trying to figure that out. Like, what were you guys talking about? And, Monica jumps in and she's like, well, I was surprised that you didn't participate. And it's like, girl, say what you were saying, because you're not surprised, because you were just saying how insecure Lisa is and how she has to overcompensate and do all of this other stuff. So there's no surprise. You literally even said, like, we all should have known that Lisa wasn't going to do it. So don't say you're surprised, because you're not surprised. Like, speak your mind like you've been speaking your mind. Lisa literally cleared her within that first 5 minutes because, like, again, she clocks tea. She's not dumb. She can tell that Monica is picking at her at this point. And Monica's like, I'm surprised that you didn't dress up. And Lisa pauses. And she says,
I am dressed up. I'm in head to toe couture. I got Valentino shoes on, a Fendi bag, and beautiful eyeshadow.
Cleared. Like, girl, shut up, first of all. And then it's literally what I just said, but doubled. So now, like, she's going in on Lisa again. This is like the third time now since the trip has started that she's going in on Lisa, and nobody's providing any feedback. Nobody is supporting what she's saying. Like, nobody cares because they know that she's dragging it, and that's just kind of how Lisa is. So it's just like, girl, you're doing too much when it comes to Lisa. And even Meredith jumps in and she's trying to defend. Like I said earlier, she's like, look, we all have our different perspectives of how we want to do stuff and how we want to do our drag or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's Meredith's trip. So this wasn't even her event. And she's like, look, girl, we did the challenge to the best of our ability. It is what it is. And it's also weird that Monica is targeting Lisa in this moment. But it's like you have two other ladies on this bus that didn't dress up as well. Meredith, who you were just butt buddies with this morning, and Mary, who you're also trying to be butt buddies with. So if you're going to hold Lisa accountable, also hold them accountable. So that brings me to my next interesting point. At the end of the day, like, when an argument's happening, you're just like, what is this even about? And Monica takes her fake dramatic pause and she starts crying again. And she's just like, it was just so hard to hear you talk about your ring. And it's just like, we're back there. Like, if it's so hard to hear her talk about it, why are you still talking about it? Like, why are you still talking about this ring? You're still stuck on that, and we're not even there. We're talking about Trixie Cosmetics. We're talking about drag, makeup, and wigs. I need her to stop with this whole, like, there are people struggling thing and, like, trying to demonize Lisa and make her feel bad. And, like, you don't connect with society and regular society that has to take care of themselves and can't afford stuff like that. Neither do you. Neither do you. Like, you literally, I wish Lisa had this tidbit and this was like a group conversation, but you literally told us, Monica, in the confessional that your man had money and he took care of everything. You never worried about money until you cheated on him voluntarily, and now you're getting a divorce. So these issues that you're going to are very first world issues because that's a privileged issue to have. It's very privileged to be married to a man that takes care of everything financially and be able to go cheat on him for 18 months and now he's leaving you. So it's like, oh my gosh, woe is me. I'm getting a divorce that I caused and now have to take care of myself financially. That's privileged. Like, what are you talking about? I never had a rich man to begin with, and I definitely don't have a Louis Vuitton bag. But I really like in this moment, and this made me realize that Lisa is more aware than we think she is, right? She even says Like, this was like one, I think this will go down as like my favorite thing she's ever said. She's like, I'm not going to be apologizing for being me. Like, your situation, I'm sorry for your situation, but that doesn't have anything to do with me. And I'm not going to apologize for being me. And I love that. That's what tells me that, like, Lisa recognizes, like, yeah, I am too much and I do too much, but that's part of who I am. And it is what it is. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not a bad person. And if you're up, like, if you don't like that, and if that annoys you, and if you don't like Lisa because she does stuff like that, that is perfectly fine. But that's not an excuse to pick at people and make issues with people and act like things are bigger than they really are. If you're annoyed by somebody, then you just need to be annoyed by them. But that doesn't mean you pick at them and make arguments with them. Because that same argument that Monica was making to Lisa about her not doing the makeup, she could have been making it to Meredith and Mary, but she was not. For what reason? Because she wanted to pick with Lisa. Like, come on now, let's be for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not do the favoritism stuff. I know that Lisa's not everybody's cup of tea, but let's acknowledge that Monica is picking with her. That's all I'm saying. And Monica has no reason. Like, it's honestly disgusting that we're allowing Monica to come on here and her storyline is, oh my God, I'm struggling. Because it's not a struggle to be a single mom with 4 kids and have to take care of them primarily financially, as you allege, because you cheated on your husband. That's not hard times. There are people in the world that are actually going through hard times, Monica, and it's not because they cheated on their husbands. So honestly, like, let's be for real. Like, the fact that we're even allowing you to push this narrative and say, woe is me for something that you did to yourself, you should be happy. I do like when Monica's like flying off the handle and screaming because Lisa is clearing her. I like that Angie was able to jump in and say, well, this is very hypocritical. Like, you were just talking about how I was acting out of character with Meredith, but look at how you're acting. And she's screaming and hollering. And nobody else is at this level. Nobody is on Monica's side. She looks dumb. Even to the point where at the end, she had to deflect and call Lisa defensive. And Lisa's like, girl.
You're defensive. Like you, I'm not defensive. I'm bored.
So this last part of the episode, when they finally get to the venue, like, these girls love to be from the Sprinter van, honey. So they get there. The mood is already off. I don't know what Mary wasn't living about the venue, but she's on her way to McDonald's, and I feel her because I love me a McDonald's, okay? So I don't blame her. Mary is on her way to McDonald's. Y'all go fight up in there, and I will see y'all later. I feel like Whitney was already sitting on ready because as soon as they get in there, she's ready to call out Meredith because Monica obviously didn't. And she's like, well, you know, Meredith, you didn't really participate either. And Meredith's already like, girl, I'm not really going to get into this with you. Like, come on now. This is where Whitney's point fails because, you know, she's just like, well, you didn't dress up. And she's trying to pick this issue with Meredith. And this isn't even really the issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, Whitney, if you have an issue with Meredith, that's fine. But this whole dressing up thing is not it. Because she then tries to support that issue by saying, you know, well, if this was my trip, I would have gone on it and I would have participated. And Meredith is like, perfect, but this isn't your trip. But then obviously Meredith, you know, I won't even say she lost me because honestly, I mean, I feel like these other points weren't necessary, but you know, she goes in to talk about how she had a headache, so she didn't want to wear the wig, and there's other things going on. And then, you know, Whitney is just already like, okay, girl, see, now it goes from the disabled child to the headache, and that pisses Meredith off. So that's something that I feel like you have to pay attention to. Like, yes, it does feel like Meredith like weaponizes things, and they kind of come out of the blue, but I don't personally believe that she would have gotten as visibly upset about that if there wasn't something. I don't know. That's just the way that I feel. You know what I'm saying? I do feel like Meredith do be on some BS. Like, I'm not going to say that I don't, but I do also feel like there has to be something. Like, I don't know. I do feel like there has to be something. And at this point, the ladies are just kind of like Minecrafting arguments and blowing up arguments in all these different areas of the restaurant. You know, we get a period where like Meredith is over talking to Monica and they're both calling Angie like a pit bull and a chihuahua. So Angie comes across from the bar and she's like, did you just call me a pit bull to Meredith? So she's arguing at Meredith's back and Meredith's like blocking her. And, you know, it's just so much chaos for, like, I couldn't even like look and see like who I agree with, like, honestly, because I'm just like, now it's getting so completely out of hand. One of the biggest revelations for me even in this moment is that like I said, Monica's still fired up, and it's just seeming like because she didn't get where she wanted to get with Lisa, now she has to come back at Angie. And I think she's noticing that I mean, she did beef with Angie a little bit in the van, but like she's noticing that Meredith has that beef with Angie, so I feel like she wants to jump on in that, and she kind of like is off to the side with Meredith and Heather, and she's like, "Let me just ask you this: like, do we agree that Angie is basically like Lisa's dog, like Lisa's lap dog, essentially?" And they're just like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." You know what I'm saying? It's just like, then it turns into this whole thing about, which kind of sheds some light for me, because I feel like the return attack from Angie was like, but girl, like you were literally Jen's lap dog, like you're Jen's assistant. I don't remember if it was like, because I think it went from like being Lisa's lap dog to Jen's lap dog. So they're both going back and forth about who was Jen's assistant, who worked for Jen. And what shed light to me was, I mean, I feel like, and Monica wasn't super clear on what she did for Jen. Like, she said that she was her assistant for a brief period, and then she asked her to do something illegal or alluded to something illegal allegedly, and that was it. Like, she didn't really give the extent of what she did for Jen. So, to the girls' credit, I do feel like the other girls, plural, I do feel like Angie is trying to come on the show and make drama with certain ladies, but also like distance herself from where we really know her from. Like, she's trying to like create this storyline of like beef with Lisa and beef with Angie without giving us the background of, oh, I came from being up under Jen Shaw. Like, because essentially what I feel like is she probably worked for Jen with the aspiration of getting on this show, which you did, so good for you. But it's like, don't act like that's not where you come from, but then try to throw dirt on everybody else. Like Glass House, Casting Stones, you know what I'm saying? That's the vibe that I'm getting from Monica, and I feel like that's what the ladies are trying to call out, but it's obviously hard to ascertain with all the chaos going on. I want to see more about this now that Angie can see that Monica's being weird to her, and now that I think that Lisa has really clocked Monica's tea and her, like, Monica's trying to pick at Angie and Lisa at the end of the day, especially Lisa at the end of the day. And I think it's because she's trying to, typically I would say it's because she's trying to get in with the cool girls, but like, I don't know what clique she's trying to fit in with, because none of the ladies are necessarily against Lisa. So I don't know what she thinks she's about to succeed in. Like, this doesn't feel like an argument that she's just gonna have by herself and just like, oh, I feel this way about Lisa, so I'm not rocking with Lisa. It feels like she wants people to join in on it, and like that's why she's so loud and vocal in groups about Angie did this wrong and Lisa did this wrong. So you know they'll join in on Angie because they don't like Angie, but it's not happening for Lisa. So I don't really know what her end goal is. I guess there's gonna be tea, which she alluded to in the first episode, like, oh, there's more about Lisa, so maybe that's why she's picking at her, because she has to build up to why she would spill tea about Lisa. But it's like, girl, you're spilling tea about Lisa because you were Jen's assistant, you're messy, and you came on the show to be messy. Like, don't try to create a story arc as to why you're beefing with Lisa and now you have to drop tea on her. Just drop it, girl. Just go ahead and drop it, and drop the ring thing, and stop talking about money, because you sound so silly. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm definitely not a Monica fan. Like, she is definitely a pick-me, definitely contradicts the hell out of herself, and she's messy, and I just I don't care for it. I'm not living for it, unfortunately, because I thought I would. But, you know, we'll see what happens next time, and I'll see y'all in the next episode.